going to be talking about how to inspect for subterranean termites, and I brought you to this absolutely excellent house that really has some very good termite evidence. This house was built in 1905, and as you can see, it's got a couple of room additions that you can see at the very front, and you can see they have enclosed the what used to be basically a little patio area, and they have put apartments also on the back. This has a dugout basement that you can walk through, but also several crawl spaces. And if we were going to be looking at this place for treatment, the first thing that we have to do is inspect it for termite evidence around the outside, and also look for places that would give termites easy access to the inside. I know from working on this place for several years that they have had termite infestations in here. And one of the places that they had it is right in this area on the interior. They actually had swarmers show up in this kind of storage area. And if we keep walking forward, we can look at it and go, this is an add-on. You can see the slab on ground, but most likely because they didn't use any liquid termiticide at the time that this house was built, there's a lot of access for termites here. So let's continue looking. We don't see any obvious damage, but one thing I definitely do want to point out to you is if we go back here, this is access to the basement, and it may be a little bit difficult for you to see, but this is an area where they used to put coal down into the basement, and it would collect there and they'd use that for fuel. This gives easy access to termites. They're able to crawl right into here and then get down into the basement area. So that's one place that we know we need to look. So let's continue. If we were doing a thorough inspection of this entire house, realize that I would be crawling around the back here looking for termite tubes. But one of the things that's probably the most challenging is look at the size of this porch. Now theoretically, we want to get down to the footer here, and we would have to take this little tiny access area to try and crawl under there. Most adult humans wouldn't be able to get under there, so the way that this typically would be treated would be drilling holes 18 inches apart so that we could actually inject the liquid termiticide underneath the porch right at the footer here. But we've got a full-on basement. It might be a little more complicated. We'll have to go take a look inside and see what we're actually dealing with. So as we continue around the perimeter, we would be looking for termite tubes, termite damage, termite evidence. And one thing I want to point out to you here on the front porch, we can see that there's some old damage. See the termite evidence here, and it looks like they've also had some carpenter ants in the past, most likely. But this lets you know that at some point we had termites probably crawling up on the interior and then getting into the wood. So as we continue, we can see a little bit more old damage. Here's some more right here, and you can tell because they tend to eat along the grain of the wood, so that's part of what you're looking for. And again, ideally, it would be best if we were able to crawl under this porch and be able to treat it with liquid termiticide, but you can see that the access is very, very limited. Okay? Maybe I could get in there, but maybe not. Maybe I could get in and not get back out. That would be bad. As we continue around, I want you to think about what the pest control operator is actually going to have to do. They're going to have to trench this whole area to try and get a blanket of termiticide around this entire house. That's going to be a challenge. And look, here's another porch, and this one's actually higher. I wonder how much distance there is between the top of this porch and where we hit the soil. We're going to have to go inside to be able to find that out. And as you can see, over time, there's been damage here where we actually have the steps have pulled away, and this is another location where termites would be able to theoretically get up. Here we have access to the basement, and this gives us an indication that also termites could be down below this area and crawling into the basement area. So we know we definitely need to get in that basement. So we'll continue our walk around. Other complications that we see with buildings like this is they may have a storage area. Let's see what we've got in here. Oh my goodness, the earwigs of 1,000 years are in there. I'm sorry guys, sorry to ruin your life. Let's go in and just take a quick look. And what you can see in here is that we're going to have to move all of this stuff out of our way to put the termiticide into these areas, or else we won't get good coverage. And you can imagine the amount of work that this is going to take to get this house treated. And if you look back there, you can see that people are pretty bad about putting stuff in and under the house, and then it sits there for years and years. Let's say goodbye to these earwigs and try to give them their home back temporarily. So sad, so sad. And as we continue around, we can see that apartments have been added up here, which complicates it somewhat. We would be inspecting the base for termite tubes, but I've inspected this before. We don't really see anything back here. So we're coming around, looking at the amount of treatment that this is requiring, how long is it going to take, how much liquid do we have to put out, and how are we going to apply it. Now, one of the challenges is when we run into concrete like this, is again, we have to drill through this to get to the soil underneath this slab sidewalk. Okay, that's not going to look really pretty, that doesn't make people happy, but you can see that this has been treated before. See the drill holes that they've plugged? So there has been termiticide applications out here at this house. Okay, so we completed our perimeter inspection, and now it's time to go in and see what we've got in the basement. Subterranean termites are associated with the soil, that's why they're called subterranean, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to head downstairs. Come on. This way. So, any place that has ever experienced this, we have to go down to the basement, because that is where moisture sources are and things like that, and also good harborage locations. That's also where the food is. So come on. Take notice of some of the places we get to crawl through. To be able to see down here adequately, you really need a good headlamp. And I can recommend that if you don't have anything that helps you see, it's really, really hard. But once you have a good lamp, then you can see the damage pretty easily. So let's take a look at what's down here. Now, we want to always inspect systematically and logically, and this is a complicated basement area. But one of the things I want to point out to you, one of the first things that I see up here is you can see old termite damage. So we want to go usually from the floor to ceiling and see what we can see. So we would get back here in this area, and we're still looking for damage, and we know that we need to look over here on this side. And we go down to the floor. Don't see any termite tubes or any termite evidence. Go up to the ceiling. Let's try the other side. Get behind this tank. Oh, look what we have here. Do you see that up there? And you have to ask yourself, you were like, how would mud get in these locations? Well, this is what tells you, is that termites brought the mud with them. And as you can see along the wood here on what we call the mud sill, which is right above the concrete, you can see the termite evidence that's accumulated over the years. Now we still want to look down, see if we see anything, but I don't see anything down here, so you kind of get an indication that the termites really came in up at this level. So looking down and up, okay, so we know some of the locations where the termites have definitely been. Here's some more evidence right here. You see that? So if you were a pest control operator, you really do have to look carefully because there's evidence in different locations. Look at this. And here you can see that this beam pretty much has been eaten up by termites at some point. Okay. Hard to miss that. And we don't see anything on the bottom. Let's try the next room. So again, systematically and logically we're going up, and here we see is an old termite tube. So we know that they've been active in here. If you look in that corner, you can again see mud. And we look down, no obvious evidence. Look up, there's more evidence right at the mud sill. So you can see that these termites pretty much came in right at the level at the top of the basement. And you might ask yourself, well, how did they get there? See this evidence here? Okay, do you remember that coal chute that we saw outside? Here's some more evidence right here in the corner. And as we move along here, this is that entrance to that coal chute. So no doubt the termites came in this way and then started traveling along the mud sill of the wood. As we look down, we don't see anything, but look at this. Here we have a mud tube that starts at the top and goes all the way down. And if we look a little bit further, where we can still see termite damage, you can see there was a mud tube that started right up there. And if we follow it, you can see that that went all the way down to the ground. And here's another one right next to it. So now you should begin to know what we are looking for when we are actually looking for termite damage in a house. And I don't know if you can see this corner right here, but also we have some more damage and mud tube right up there in that corner, but nothing that goes down to the floor. So as we continue to look from the bottom up and the bottom up, one of the challenges we realize is, oh my goodness, what do we do about this? So this is the area that's underneath the porch. And if you get up in here, you can look around to see that there are a couple of termite tubes over there, but that this area would not really be humanly possible to crawl and treat. And so this is why we have to go and drill the holes through the porch. How else would we get the liquid termiticide in place? So these are things that your pest control operator is going to take into consideration while they're doing the walkthrough. We've got one more room that we can walk through quite quickly. And that's on this side. And you can see this area was used as a storage area. So we're looking bottom to top. Do we see any mud tubes? Nothing back here. But if you remember that porch that was on the other side, we need to take that into consideration. Now this looks like there was some old damage right here. And it's coming down from here. So the termites had some activity in this room also. And as we keep looking through, down and up, look at where we are. Do you remember that window that we saw outside? So this tells us that that little side porch is over here. But one thing you can notice by looking at this section, that side porch is located right there. We have absolutely no access to it at all. So that's something that we're definitely going to have to drill through the top to be able to treat. And I just want to point out this is a little bit too rickety to get up on. But again, you see we do have an entryway into underneath the front porch, but that we probably can't really get access to. So that obligates us to drill from the top into the soil to try and take care of any termite problems we see out there. One of the things you have to realize is that if you're gonna inspect for termites, you have to get into some pretty small, tight spaces. And as we crawl through here, what I want you to think about is what it's like for a technician. He's gonna have to go in here and inspect for termites, and then later drag in equipment and hoses and things so that he can trench and then apply liquid termiticide around the perimeter of these foundation walls. You'll be impressed. So here we go.
Okay, one of the things that you can see first thing when we crawl under here is that we're going to have to navigate our way around these pipes. Now take a look at the perimeter wall here that I'm lighting up with my headlamp, and just imagine being a pest control operator and having to basically inspect all of those for termite tubes. And this is a pretty tight space. You don't want to be a real big person and then have to deal with this. So here we are, we're going on to the next section, so follow me. We go over the pipe, and now we're going into this little space right here. Are you ready? Here we go. Okay, one of the first things I want to point out, you notice I'm laying down on the ground, but my headlamp is showing you right under this first beam here. You see those little mud tubes? There's one right there, and then there's one right up here. And that's the beginning of the termite evidence. So we would note that yes, the termites are definitely in here and along this wall, so we're going to need to treat that. And let's continue our inspection, and you can notice here too, see a little termite tube, and here's a little termite tube. So we know we have activity, and then I get to this spot, and oh yes, here you can see actual termite damage. And if you look here, you can see the remnants of termite tubes. So that's pretty obvious, and look at this right here. So that sort of tells us now that we've got to look carefully at every one of these beams and see if there has been termite activity there. Now notice this little area, we're not going to be able to get in there. That's not humanly possible. And yet we know that one side of the house over there has had termite activity in the past. So this is another situation where we probably have to be able to drill from the top to actually get at the termites. So you might notice there's a big long termite tube right here, but also look at the rest of the area that we have to crawl. It's kind of small, but it's very tight. And one of the things that you can see over on this wall is leftover termite tube that was active before. See that brown stuff that's coming up the side of the wall? That lets us know that the termites were there. So we're going to continue forward in through this tight space, and here we can see more termite evidence as we crawl along. Okay, now we're on our back, and we're looking at termite damage that we see under another beam. And one thing I want to point out is see how the mud runs along the crease of this beam right here and also the floorboards. But you also have evidence of other tubes as well. So one thing you can say about this place is they've had a lot of termite activity over the years. And if you look over here even, you can see the remnants of an old tube as well. Okay, so we're going to kind of come over here to this wall, And one of the things I want to point out to you is you can see the termite damage that runs along the bottom, and you can see the remnants of old tubes. And as I'm looking between these two boards, I see some other termite tubes in addition. So you can see that it's really beneficial to get in here deep and see exactly where all the termites have been active over time. Here's another beautiful termite tube that you can see up here on this floor joist. And if we scoot forward just a little bit more, and you see it gets really tight in here, you can see that we've got more tubes and damage up here. So basically, we know that these termites have covered this entire area. So how do we treat it all? That's what we have to think about if we're the pest control operator. But this inspection gives us a lot of information that we can use to make good decisions about how to treat this house the most effective way. Okay, one of the things you'll notice from the way I'm scooching out of here that I've gotten very dirty. Make sure that you have coveralls and a good headlamp if you're going to do this kind of work. Look at this beautiful home. You know, we're so used to looking at houses in the areas where the people actually live, and they're gorgeous. But we need to remember that down below, where we have to worry about pests, it can be a whole different world.